there's going to be in the next couple of months a concerted effort on their part to shut down media. There's going to be lawsuits. Steve Wynn, that dickhead casino guy, is pushing the Supreme Court to look at this case that would basically make it much harder for journalists to write about and be critical of politicians. We have a long tradition in this country of satire and making fun of people in the way that we do. And Elon Musk has sued Media Matters, and that he's going to lose, but it affects their bottom line. And all of that stuff is going to happen, and we need to also be there to support that because, I get so frustrated with the whole like New York Times, Washington Post, big paper thing because like on the one hand, they're so fucking frustrating because they capitulate all the time. But on the other hand, they often do really good work that's indispensable. And if they weren't there, what would we do? Washington Post had an exclusive today about the British government and Apple, and that they want to, basically have all access to everything that anybody puts in the cloud. And this is like a super top. So that's an amazing story that is in the Washington Post today. And, I'm a guy on Substack, and I'm telling you, a guy on Substack ain't getting that story. So these big legacy things they're fucking important, and they can't be destroyed they must be improved. They cannot be allowed to fail in a sense.
Or
Mm-hmm.
the journalists and reporters who are very well trained, very well sourced, understand their craft, have the reputation, know what it takes to do the job and get the job done, find spaces where they're allowed to do the job and do the stories and chase the stories that are meaningful to them. So, and hopefully there are resources available to fund this, and the big funding not just being for the journalists to have a living that they can make, so that they can provide for their family, so they can do the job, the very important work, but so that there's a business affairs and legal departments at these outlets. It doesn't have to be the Washington Post, right? I'd love to just take the people from there that know what the fuck they're doing.
Substack has that. They do have.
Well, but they don't have. Is Substack going to have? If you're going to get sued, if all of a sudden in comes a lawsuit, is Substack going to show up with their attorneys?
I don't know, not necessarily, but they do allow for that. They have resources for that. So somebody like Acosta is probably going to be protected by that. Okay. Substack has a lot of money now, so it is in a sense.
Yeah, and there are growing global networks like the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the Bureau of Investigative Journalists. There's growing numbers of these reporters who have left, whether it's the LA Times, New York Times, Washington Post, that are kind of forging a new path and a new model, because the old model for journalism was that the hard news was paid for by classified ads and Macy's. And once that went away, they did, subscriptions were not taking up the slack. Subscriptions were never underwriting. And at the end of the day, those are for-profit entities, and they made a ton of money. And so now they're being, I agree with you, Greg, that some of the best journalism is happening at those institutions where they have some resource, and they have, unfortunately, it's inconsistent and it's waning.
Right.
But I would say to individuals, there are reporters out there that you trust, you respect. They've opened Substacks or some other Patreons or what have you. And, we have a budget in my house where we pay for subscriptions to those independent journalists that are doing incredible work. And, at wideawakeamerica.org, we've got a commitment to keeping our information always, nothing's behind a paywall, no need to subscribe. We appreciate when people do, but part of it is that I think we are in this massive imbalance where the far right puts nothing behind a firewall. Their propaganda is pumped into our eyeballs 24/7. And we've created a world in which journalists, in order to eat, who have integrity, are, moving to places that require individual subscriptions. And I say, subscribe to as many as you can. We're going to have to start putting our support behind the journalists that are doing the kind of coverage that we need, and are facing the blowback from the Elon Musks and the Steve Winns and, the Mike Flynn's, all of those people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the paywalls, that's interesting about, I hadn't thought about that the right-wing places don't have behind the paywall. I hate paywalls. I don't use a paywall. But
you have inspired me to not have a paywall, and I'm grateful for the people who do come in as paid subscribers, but I'll never put it behind a paywall, because
I want people to
we've got to have
shit.
these conversations. We have to have these conversations.
Yeah.